I could have been a great programmer at IBM and just been on that merry-go-round, but the roller coaster is way more fun, and this then sports is way more fun, and to be surrounded by smart and kind people all the time is just a better life to lead.
Hey guys, welcome to Hi, the How I Got Here podcast. I'm your host, Trevis Waters, and every week I'm going to sit down with people who have unpredictable stories. Whether it is zero to hero, hero to zero, or something in between, they came out with a story worth sharing. In this week's episode, we'll be talking to Mr. Rick Wolf himself, a career in the fantasy sports space spanning decades, starting with him going to college for political science and then blossoming into what is now one of the founding fathers of fantasy sports. Let's go ahead right now and hop into our conversation. Enjoy. Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of the brand new Hi podcast, How I Got Here. We have the man, the myth, the legend, the Wolfman, Rick Wolf. Now, for me personally, I have known Rick for, I want to say at least 5 years, because I've been in the fantasy sports and sports betting space. But for the viewers, the listeners, the watchers that have never seen your face or heard your name before, whether they're inside or outside the space, kind of get a today, August 1st, 2025, what is your what, if you want to say, like, title or your focus, where are you right now today?
Well, I'm the same place I've pretty much been since about 2001, which is I'm always running some kind of business that has something to do with sports betting and fantasy sports. But at the same time, I'm spending a good amount of my time either mentoring people or helping the industry in general have the right voice and say the right things and make sure that we continue to understand that it's not rocket science. We're not curing cancer. But we do give people mini vacations by allowing them to make the games more fun to watch, right? So that's what it's all about. To me, it's never been about making money. Sports betting is and fantasy just aren't about making money. It's about it's about having more fun with the games that you love.
I'm not sure how many times you have said that out loud, in terms of like in any other podcast or things you've been doing, but I don't think I've ever heard the, like, my goal is to give people mini vacations when they're watching their favorite sports team. And
Yeah,
I mean, that's like the best thing I've ever heard to explain. Like, oh yeah, yeah, I've never
yeah.
heard that
I
before.
mean,
Go
to
ahead.
put a pin on it, right? Like Aaron Judge, let's say he's on my team tonight, right?
Yeah.
I have a crap day, or I stubbed my toe or pulled a hamstring while I was doing my job or whatever, or I had an argument with my girlfriend or my wife. I come home, I take a look at my things. Judge just hit a home run. I just go fist pump. Yes, it's one thing that's always positive because all of the points in fantasy are generally positive points when something good happens, and generally if you have a big enough team, something good will happen, then it just puts a little positivity, a little mini vacation in your life.
I like that a lot. I'm actually going to say right now, I'll probably steal that at least once or
It's all
twice.
yours.
So, as far back as you can remember, even if you can associate it to a certain age, what what was like the very first thing that you remember thinking, whether it was either kindergarten or eighth grade or senior year of high school, where you're like, this is what I want to be when I grow up? Like, what's that first memory you have of what you actually wanted to do
Yeah.
originally?
Well, I wanted to do something completely different, right? So, because I grew up with a tough upbringing. I won't bother anybody with any of that stuff. I'm sure everybody has their own demons and messes in their own worlds. But I always thought that I wanted to change the world because I thought the world was really screwed up. So I thought I'm going to grow up, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to become a senator, and I'm actually going to try and change the world, right? So somewhere along the line, fun happened. And so, like, in high school, I won mock draft competition, mock trial competitions, and I was really feeling like I was going to be a lawyer. That my college dorm mate was Glenn Colton, and he did become one of America's best lawyers, if not America's best lawyer. And I really thought that I would make a difference that way. But I found that having fun and watching people smile and having them have more fun with things, and my love and passion for sports was so strong that it just happened accidentally, really. I was very good with computers before computers really existed. I went to college in 1982, so 1% of Americans had a PC on their at their homes. One out of 175 or 180 people, so less than 1%. And so the I was just born in the right time to be able to then create things. And I created things that were outside of sports first. At IBM, I wrote some of the first print drivers for non-IBM printers so that people could print to other printers from their IBM text. I wrote some of the first store and forward software for telex. You know what telex is. And I was involved in writing the first wire feeds for Dow Jones and for Sports Ticker for Prodigy in order to put that information for finance and for sports onto a local network, one of the first digital networks, if you will, before the internet.
Do you so originally it was I mean not originally, I mean still is today. You want to essentially help people you said like the was it lawyer or attorney? It was kind of the first
Yeah,
focus point. So be, you definitely have probably one of the vast networks in terms of the fantasy sports space in North America and probably globally. But do you feel that of all of the people that you've met in this space, that they all started with something some similar end goal of I want to I want to help people that eventually transitioned into the fantasy sports space or sports betting space?
I don't know. I mean, some of the best people that I know in fantasy sports and sports betting are just smart and kind, right? I know I've said that at the last conference, but those are the people I try and surround myself with. And if you look at people, let me just give you an example. Probably one of the nicest people maybe the nicest person in fantasy sports is Jeff Erickson from RotoWire. He started as a lawyer and then became like I would trade with him and I would have kept doing the lawyer thing. But he started as a lawyer and decided that his passion from sports was more important. And he and Peter Shanky started RotoWire, and he never looks back. And he has a roller coaster career because it always starts difficult in every industry. But he prefers the roller coaster to the merry-go-round. And he could have been a great lawyer and been on the merry-go-round, just like I could have been a great programmer at IBM and just been on that merry-go-round. But the roller coaster is way more fun, and this then sports is way more fun. And to be surrounded by smart and kind people all the time is just a better life to lead. So
What point? So when you said you went, did you go to college for the legal side of things?
I went to college as a political science major originally in order to be a lawyer. And then what I found was in order to afford college, I had to take stipended positions all over Binghamton. So one of the most highest paid one was being the social director. So 17,000 people at the thing. So I took the stipended position of running social for the student association there. There were a lot of clubs that need to be funded, and I helped decide which ones got funded. And we brought concerts for the first time there. We added social events like Fall Fest and Spring Fling, which didn't exist there. And we really sort of put the social into a university that was pretty much an academic only university. So that was exciting, but that also took the kind of time away from my studies. And what was easy for me was computer science and mathematics. So by the time I got to be a junior, I had no other path to graduate in 4 years other than getting both of those degrees. So I got a BS in mathematics and BS computer science instead of the political science degree, which would have sent me towards law school.
So that essentially was so like between sophomore junior year of college was kind of the turning point where it's like, wait, if I'm already doing these things. B, I'm enjoying the time that I'm doing with all of um, the non-political side of things, and then the last part, I guess, the nail in the coffin of that switcheroo, if you will, is oh, I have to put an insane amount of more time into this political science than I would have to do for
Yeah.
these. You said you got your double degree, dual.
Yeah.
What's the word I'm looking for? Dual degree. Like there's
Double major.
yes, the
Uh-huh.
other that one. So it was it
But in a way,
a
it's lucky. Like in a way, it's lucky, right? Or unlucky. Like some people would think, oh, you didn't get to live out your dream or whatever. But I ended up living out a dream I hadn't thought of, right? So, and that's sort of the cool part about it. And then everything that happens from there just has to do with the fact that, like, I know emerging technology better than anyone else because the old technology was so old and the new technology wasn't there yet. So then I have the ability to be in rooms and do things that I wouldn't be allowed to do if I graduated a decade later, because technology would be so much further along.
So, which one was it more of? Was it a loss of interest on the political side, or just a
No,
exponential amount
absolutely
of
not.
interest on the?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
I
so
was running, I was helping to run the student association politically. We were marching on Washington for gun control. We were fighting for I was fighting in every legislature I could find for the causes that I agreed with. And I never stopped being political at all, even now. But, uh, but it wasn't how I was going to, it wasn't the way that I was going to live my life, because it was so, stressful and complicated, that being a smaller part of it was better than being the leader of it, where where fun is the best thing to have, and you should have as much as you can. And damn if fantasy sports isn't fun.
so you made the decision to switch the majors to focus more on a double major in political science and mathematics. What was the
In computer science and mathematics.
computer science and mathematics? What was the first, I guess, thing outside of college that you're like, okay, I have these degrees now. Let's use them. Whether it was your first job was focused on those, or just a job just to pay the bills. What was the first thing out of college?
Oh, when I put myself through college by managing a restaurant, because I wrote programs to do scheduling, which there was no scheduling for restaurants anywhere, because there was no software anywhere, because there were no computers anywhere. So I could do the schedules fast for all the personnel and all the things that need to be done, and do payroll and figure all these things out, because I was programming them on my computer at home and nobody had a computer. So I ran a restaurant in Greenwich, Connecticut. It was a really great, fantastic restaurant. It also gave me the opportunity to bring people back to the restaurant after the night was over. So there was a lot more fun with that as well. And but it paid very, very well, because I did things that nobody could do, and so that helped me put myself through college. And then when I got out of college, I tried to find something in computer science, mathematics, computer science generally. And so as I was looking and still running the restaurant, um, I was playing in a pool tournament, and the guy that I beat in the pool tournament invited me to come get an interview at a job for a software developer. So I literally met my I didn't, my resumes, I sent out 1,000 resumes everywhere. And the way I got my interview for my first job was playing a pool tournament.
I know you've
Go.
mentioned a few times that you this was a time people didn't have computers. You had a computer. Do you remember? Uh, I'm assuming, in fact, not even factoring in inflation, that if you were one of the few people who have computers, computers were incredibly expensive. Uh,
Built my own
you built your own computer.
from parts
Man,
from the high school. Yeah.
wait, the, how
The
did you
high
get the
school
parts
had
from the
their
high school?
computers that they would be getting rid of, or they'd be
Okay,
getting cycling. And then I used those pieces to put together what would be an IBM XT, like really slow computer. And yeah,
but I got the job done.
yeah,
So
and you could, it's not like you could go in the local library. They didn't have any either.
yeah,
So there wasn't any place to get a computer except for, either a friend's house. And so I would, like, if people were getting rid of something, or they were cycling out something, or they didn't know how it worked, like I would help them fix their computer. And then, oh, you don't need this part. Can I take this? And we put the pieces together. And nothing needed graphics, real heavy graphics or anything. It was all typed in command line stuff, and built code that then was executed against the operating system. So it wasn't like I needed many parts in order
yeah.
to be able to put it together.
I was the first thought was, am I getting Rick to admit to stealing parts from school? But then again, you said they're recycled parts. I was like, man, we got this is a crazy
Maybe
story.
we
Uh,
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I would use borrowed.
bar, yeah. Okay, so we we borrowed pieces. We put together the computer. You were doing things both related and unrelated to
Yeah.
just like you said for managing the restaurant by. I mean, just probably more things beyond scheduling because I mean, there's so many things you can do with the
Oh yeah,
computer.
everything from
Yeah,
packing the walk-in to, helping the chef make the different meals for the night to I was basically your run around, you know, helping with whatever I could, which is that's sort of in my DNA. I don't, I wouldn't say I was really managing the restaurant because I don't believe in that sort of management structure.
yeah.
We were a team executing together. So,
What
and the
kind of
chef was an amazing dude.
what kind of restaurant was it?
It was just your American Fare restaurant. So it was actually called the Double Decker Deli, but it was because it was two levels. Downstairs was your
Gotcha.
your typical deli with tables, and then upstairs was your fancy-ish restaurant.
Does that still
Uh,
exist today?
no, no,
No.
not anymore. No.
I was like, give a little plug.
Yeah, yeah.
So what? I understand that we're transitioning away from the political science focus. We have the computer that we built. We're doing things based on computer science and mathematics. And then what was like?
And then the first job comes, and then I
Yeah,
don't need a computer anymore because I got a whole. The first job was with Western Union, owned by MCI. So if you remember back in those days, it was MCI, Sprint, and AT&T, which ran all of telecommunications. So they basically were in charge of every phone in America, every line, you know, every ability to transport data at the time because there was no internet. So they were sort of in charge of everything. And the division that I was in was for telex. I don't know if the audience is going to even know what that is, but there were machines around the world and you typed in your message, and when you pushed enter, it dialed and connected to someplace other in the world and passed the data bits across and then printed out a message on the other side. So like I worked on the UN account, so that would be like every country in the world in their different embassies. So you want to send a message to the Arab embassy for the United States or the English embassy in Stratford in England. You had to type it in, you sent it off, and if it didn't answer, you had to type it in again, send it off. So we created something called the SAFE system, the store and forward exchange, which held the information and redialed over and over again until it actually went through. And it saved people an enormous amount of times. And then we moved it to terminals so that it was, could be done from regular computers. And then, now it's all done by email, right? So secure email. So, but it was just an interesting time to be in sort of the telecommunications industry, and that was sort of what I was known for at Prodigy, at IBM as well, is being the one who could figure out how to compress data, encode it, and decode it on the other end, and then how to transmit it from users' computers to to the server and back. So,
with this job, uh, was this in your mind at the time? Was this a stepping stone to get to where you wanted to be, to figure out where you wanted to be, or when you were doing this job, you're like, this is I enjoy this. Everything I'm doing, this is what I envisioned.
no, I mean, by then I was super arrogant. I'm glad that I've shed a little tiny bit of that. But I was super arrogant. And so like I was like, why are you guys doing it this way? We should do it this way. And they're like, you just got here. So at the end of my first year, I basically said, look, you have to make me in charge of all the programmers or I've got to leave. And then that's when I left to go to IBM. It's probably one of the dumbest things I did and one of the smartest things at the same time. Like I just got lucky. Like business wise, it was dumb, but then I ended up in the internet before the internet. The same thing happens again when I leave Prodigy because I leave for the same arrogant reasons, and I end up at Sportsline, um, and it's on the internet, and all those things sort of happen by accident. I just start inventing things or doing things outside of the rules, and nobody likes it, but then it makes more money, and then I go, well, hey, you got to make me the top dog, and then that's usually my exit plan because nobody likes to be talked to like that from a minion.
So, what was the time period gap between you going to IBM, like you said, like first
in
First person internet
1987.
to sports, to the sports line, the first sports related. Well, that was your first sports related role, right?
No, no. I mean, at IBM's Prodigy, they were the online service, 400 nodes. It was the internet before the internet, 400 nodes around the country, so you could locally get news, weather, sports, and then it cached information so that it would be able to send you. Only the first person would be slow, and then everybody else who was requesting the same data would get it quickly. We, I was on that team. I was in the R&D team before that was even live in '87. So, and that went live in '89. And then in 1990, a guy named John Butterfield came with the first online simulation game or fantasy game called Baseball Manager. And they asked for volunteers to be on the development team. And of course, I raised my hand. And so that's the first real development that I did. And then as soon as that development was done, Starwave, ESPN, which became ESPN.com, wanted to put ESPN.com on Prodigy. And so I designed the tool sets that allowed them to put sports information onto Prodigy. So the internet before the internet for ESPN.
When you took uh, that role for the, you said it was essentially like a volunteer role or just
Well, it was a project they were definitely doing, but there were no sports fans in the development area,
yeah.
but two other guys or three other guys.
Were
So
you
I immediately volunteered. A consulting company was brought in to write the initial code for some reason. And then I worked with that team to write that code. And then I was responsible for it for like 4 years, all the upgrades, anything we did to it, the team that was involved in it. And it was sort of my first love of playing fantasy. Um, I also started playing in my first rotisserie league in '88, so right before that. So and that the people that I started playing with were working at Prodigy at IBM, and they shot off to start All Star Stats, which became a pretty important company when it founded RotoWorld.
so for the volunteer role to do volunteer your services for something that may or may not work out financially, was it
No, no,
more?
I'm being paid to do it. It's an IBM project.
Gotcha. Okay. So was that decision to do that more because it involved the numbers that you liked, or more because it was something sports related and that kind of tickled that funny bone?
Yeah, it was because at the time I was writing games. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the movie Big, but they're like grab sword, melt wizard.
Yeah.
I was doing all those. They're called simultronics games, and you type in a direction, and then it looks in a database. It says what should we do based on the state event. This person is in this room, has these things on him. What should happen? And then it looks it up and then spits out information. Right, the giant state event machine. So I wrote that, and then we wrote something for Jack Nicklaus, his signature golf that was played on PCs. We wrote a piece that locked the keys, locked the placement of the pins, and locked the win conditions, so that people could play in tournaments against each other. And then we held online leaderboards for that, and I wrote that piece. I wrote the piece that downloaded Terry Bradshaw football to allow people to play their commissioner leagues. And then this project came along where I actually wrote real software for a game. Right.
I know you're mentioning there's few decisions you've made along the way, based on arrogance of, I'm the best person. I need to like I said, either leading the department or whatever it may be. Was there ever a point where you not only saw someone, whether they're in space or outside the space, as, oh, this person's much better than me, and then you actually had a relationship with them whether it's like an influencer, mentor, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
to kind of guide you along that path?
I mean, it happened twice, right? So when we were starting Sportsline, um, I was running way too much stuff, but my one of my colleagues, I won't call him somebody who worked for me because I don't like that, but one of my teammates, Ed Bunnell, who now works with me now, was better qualified. And so I came to New York to do a different job and gave him my job. And then with NBC, Rick Cordell is he's just a superstar. Like, he understands politics and how to handle it all and how to manage things and get what he needs done. He has vision. And he also had the ability to get in before anybody got there and leave after everybody left. And NBC for NBC, they would say there's points for showing up. So like people who work longer hours, they feel like that's important. So it was important for me to move out of the way for him in 2007 or 2007 or so to make sure that his career path would be great. And and yeah, and I never worked well with big media companies. So both of those are a good example of people who just are better with the big company. I told you that I was arrogant at those other places because at MCI, I just broke glass and did whatever I wanted until everybody got upset, right? And the same thing at IBM. And you can pretty much say that at CBS
Yeah.
and at NBC and maybe even at Alarm. I kind of did what I thought was right anyway. And, sometimes people get upset about it. Sometimes it would work great and we would sell companies. Sometimes people would say maybe it didn't work out great, right? So, but in those two are the biggest cases of people who are way better than me, way more qualified to do what we were working on, and I moved out of the way.
Was there ever a point where, because I know you were kind of on the forefront of computers and then also the forefront of the birth of fantasy football, fantasy sports in general, was it always kind of like a passion project? Or I guess my main question is, was there ever a point during this entire journey where you're like, this is not going to pay the bills, I need to shift my focus? Or is it always like, hey, I'm having fun, so even if I'm making enough to just barely enough to pay the bills, this is what I want to do? Okay, what was the focus on the financial possibilities, I guess?
Yeah, I never really thought about the money. Maybe that's why I don't have $100 million, right?
Yet it's
So
never too late, Rick.
maybe I doubt it. Um, but it was always about having fun, always about helping good people, and also, from the time we started with where Greg Ambrosius was kind enough to have me be his chairman while he was president of the FSTA. That moment sort of said it's more important to popularize and keep fantasy not being thought of as gambling than anything else. And so we just wanted to make sure it was going to be as popular as possible. And in 2000, only a couple million people playing, and now with 84 million people playing, that feels good to me. And there's no amount of money that can replace that kind of feeling that I have. When I, when two people, when I see two guys talking about their fantasy football teams on the subway, I just smile the whole time they're talking. And I mean, maybe it's this small amount that I had to do with helping it become this popular, but even for that small amount, it just makes me feel good. So that's what drives me is feeling relevant, if you will.
So, I, when you said somebody on the subway talking about sports or fantasy sports teams, that's always, it's just like the funniest thing to me. Where I feel like a lot of us in the space kind of had that same thing where it just like hair, like the spidey sense in the back of the head. If somebody's like,
Yeah.
oh, like talking to the friend, who should I start, or what side of the prop should I go on? It's like who said that? Like what's going on? A question now. So we talked about it was never about money, but what um what was the? I'm trying to find the best way to word this question. Do you credit your success in the space more to your arrogance of making decisions that eventually worked out for you, which, like you said before, you were grateful that you had that arrogance, or is it more towards the timing of everything, being the early side of the computers, being the early side of the internet, the early side of fantasy sports? So more arrogance or more timing?
Luck, I'm in the right place at the right time in the right rooms with other smart people. What I'm very good at is being second, is like coming up with the idea and working with a teammate to execute it. That's why in every business you'll see I always have you know a partner who we work well together, who usually isn't out front. It's no wonder that Ed Bunnell is the CEO of both of the two companies that we run. It was no wonder that Cordella immediately moved up the ladder. It was no wonder that I was with Al Williams for 7 years. Though all the things and the sports line experience was so fast moving that because if I didn't have that arrogance, we wouldn't have won. Like the CEO said, I want everybody to bring me 3 companies to buy by the end of the day. And I brought him 3 companies. We bought them the next day and I integrate them. Like we were moving at a pace that didn't have you be able to not have that kind of confidence. Um, so but some of that's luck too, right? I'm in a situation where we have $185 million, and if we buy the wrong company today, we can just write off that $7 million and it's gone and it's fine, right? So having companies that have stability and have money can help can help bad decision making. So or allow you to take deeper shots. So I
That's
would say, I mean, that's why, like I told you before we started recording on the radio show for 12 years, and there was about 3 years of that where every week we would have somebody different on and we would do a Forrest Gump segment. The reason I did that was because it started like I felt like Forrest Gump that, I was in the right rooms, whether it was being shot in the buttocks or it was, picking up a t-shirt and wiping my face with it and having to say, have a nice day. So I just felt blessed and lucky to be in all the right rooms and have it work out.
Was it always a glass half full situation, or were there times specifically in the fantasy sports portion of life where you're like, this is a little too risky, this probably won't work out, or this isn't working out? Was there any like fear, or was it always like, oh, like this is something that like as long as I apply myself is always going to work out for me?
No, yeah, there was always fear. I mean, the the sale to NBC was probably the most fearful moments of my lifetime. So we'd put ourselves in completely into figuring all this out. NBC just got the rights to NFL, and they basically said, if you can't launch our games by August 18th, then we're going to pull out of this big deal. And I can remember at least 15 days in a row only going home to shower and catching cat naps when I could, at my desk when I couldn't code anymore. And going home every day and seeing my 3 kids waiting to go on vacation and we couldn't go until it was finished. So those are, I mean, there's with every good thing there's bad, right? And there's certainly trepidation. We had moments in Sportsline where relationships get broken by startups, and you got to figure out how to mend those back. So there's yeah, it's not all roses and unicorns, really. It's not. Um, but it's in the end, at the end of the day, it happens to be really worth it for me. And others, like I love seeing the success of the RotoWire guys because they were really close with us, with me over the years, both as adversaries and as buddies. And it's really good to see them, get their due now, and just smart, nice, kind people, and surrounded myself with that. So I always had that. Like there were always good people around me. So even in the darkest times, you always had, people who were after the same goal, who were nice, kind people.
I know you mentioned earlier about the like something about 100. You haven't made 100 million yet, but the thing that made me want to ask a question about that is, a, have you got to a point of your career where you actually like sit down, think to yourself like, I made it, I'm successful, and if not, is it just this constant yearning for wanting to do more, wanting to do better, wanting to have more people have fun and go on those mini vacations? So I guess the first part is, at what point, if you've had that point where you like I did it, like I'm
Yeah.
successful, I
This
made it.
this may be the most truthful moment you might have from somebody who asks a question like that. Um, for me, and it's always been that way. We haven't talked much about this, but it's always been about my family and my relationship. I left so much money on the table a number of times in order to make sure that those relationships are strong. And that's and right now I'm an older guy with adult children and an unbelievable relationship with my wife for 40 years. And those are the easy things to just smile every day about and enjoy, right? As far as all the business successes go, in each situation where um, you know, any of the 3 known outs and the 4 or 5 other ones where I advised on, other people made a lot more money than I did. And that makes me really happy though. Like I've changed other people's lives as well. And in those cases, in each case where I did make money, I shared with everyone around me. So it's probably pretty rare, but like that's the only thing that work. The only way for me to stay hungry is to need to be hungry. So even after a big win, I share it around with everyone on the team. So people who weren't on the cap table got money from me just because they were part of the team. And I think that's just the way I live. I don't know that there's many people who do that, but that makes me hungry all the time and focus on family, right? So because money can break families, I got to tell you that. There's a lot of rich people who are very sad and not happy and don't have the love of their family.
Definitely agree with that one. And so, I know this entire concept of this podcast is focused on, the past story of how you got to where you are now, but just focusing on now and then moving forward, are there still things you said there? Of course, there's things that scare you and scary things along the way, whether it was the industry or the decisions you were making. Moving forward, is there still things that scare you, or are you in a place right now where like you've not 100 million, because I'll quote you on that again, but you made the money, you got a great family, you focus on the family, that worked out for you, and now, because I know you're still doing stuff in the space, but like
Yeah.
where's your
My,
view, I guess, moving forward?
yeah, I mean, my focus is passing on as much information as I have learned over all of the years about different things, especially startups. I know startups as good as anybody. And being able to give that information to people so that they can succeed, then their success becomes my reward, right? And I'm not a guy who needs money to be rewarded. When someone succeeds and then says, when they're telling their story, they say, "Oh, well, Rick Wolf helped me do this." That's what drives me. And then now, because I'm getting older, making sure the industry has good, solid younger leaders in it, and that the industry, like yourself, that make sure that Smart and Kind is taken forward for generations, and that the fantasy sports and sports betting industry is relevant and with good people leading it, and not with just money hungry people leading it.
So would that essentially summarize the fear moving forward, is that the money hungry people essentially overtake the industry of just
Yeah, I
money over
mean,
everything?
it's part of it happened before. So, you read my article series on Fantasy Alarm, fantasyalarm.com/business if you want to read that. But a lot of that talks about the board meetings in the 2015 and 16 timeframe, and how many of the board members had deals with FanDuel and DraftKings, and how FanDuel and DraftKings sort of was leading the industry, while they were, no everybody from 2009 on knew that PASPA was going to be repealed because Christie was already fighting it, and it was definitely unconstitutional. So they knew it was going to happen sooner or later, and so they were just positioning themselves for sports betting by using the fantasy sports industry. So yeah, so I'm hopeful that there'll be more people who will stand up to that kind of thing and make sure that we do the right things in situations like that. So
What is the next thing to I guess the next box to check, if you will, if because I know, like I said, you're still
yeah,
definitely hands on, definitely involved in the space. What I know you said, you want to have the space in a better place. You want to have people that are focused on things not solely money, but what is the I would like to do this, before I stop doing anything in the space. What's that box to check?
yeah. So the reason we started Game Day, gamedaysn.com, if anybody wants to take a look, it's because we believe that right now is a moment in time where people don't understand what AI really is. And so a lot of people are thinking that the content creator will be eliminated. And so we, Ed Bunnell and I, want to build a platform that can be used by both media companies of all size in order to be able to use AI to amplify content creators rather than minimize content creators, and create a space where everyone who isn't an expert or isn't an expert and can become an expert, or is an expert, can monetize their own brand and have a chance to make money like their own media company. So we started working on that, and that's going to come out in January. And then in 2026, hopefully that will be something that we build on.
And to essentially conclude this episode with Mr. Rick Wolf, my question is, and this is probably as cliche as it gets, what's the number one thing, specifically referring to your path, that for people who are either looking for a new path or just younger people who are looking to get into a path, what's that number one thing that you wish that you told yourself or that you knew during that your own experience?
I would say what's made me more successful in the last decade than before is I got self-compassion. I recognize that doing the best you can and living with the results was better than doing the best you can and then analyzing the results and then telling yourself you didn't do very well. If you take all the data in and all the information that you can get and you make good, hard decisions, those decisions are the best ones you can make. So you shouldn't say, oh, I did bad. No, the results didn't match a good decision. And be self-compassionate and care about yourself enough to not have the negative things affect, your positive performance, because you'll do much better if, rather than think that you're not good enough, is know that you're good enough, because you can't be any better than doing your best.
I like that. I like that there's a direct correlation to your fantasy lineup as well. If it doesn't work out, as long as you did everything in your power to set the best lineup, then
That's
that's
a perfect example.
yeah,
You put a player in and he gets hurt in the first quarter. Like, the analysis doesn't match the results.
right. Well, Rick, I definitely appreciate your time here. If I mean, do you have anything else you'd like to share with the viewers before we conclude this episode?
No, I mean, indecision is a decision to do nothing. So make sure that you, like I said before, take as much information as to make a decision. A lot of people will sit around and wait and then blame other things. So make decisions and have fun, because it's the best thing to have. You can have as much money in the world as you can, but it doesn't put a smile on your face. So whatever makes you tick, have fun.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time, Rick. Thanks for joining us.
All right, thanks, Travis.